We're going to get started in just a minute, so if you want to finish grabbing snacks and come down, we're passing out copies of the ministry plan. So I think Katie has a few more, so just raise your hand if you still need one. Something? Okay, I think people are kind of settled in. We're going to go ahead and get started. Joe, is the stream going? Okay, we're ready to go. There were copies of the document we're going to review passed out, and we do have a PowerPoint that'll have some of the information for people who kind of want to follow along with what we're saying. But before we get too far into that, there is something that we missed earlier in church today that I wanted to be sure to point out. And that is that Katie has a birthday. So, Katie, if you could stand up.
Oh. I thought I got away with
Breathe. We're on to you. Josh is going to play happy birthday for us for Katie. Thank you, everyone, for attending. This is the third in a series of discussions about financial matters related to the church. As we all know, church isn't all about numbers and money and giving. However, the reality is that this is a very important part of the work that we do. Today's meeting is focused on the financial review of 2023 and our ministry plan for 2024. And we need to have some open and honest conversations about our finances here at Olmsted Community Church. Before we get too much into the numbers, I thought it might be helpful to kind of review the overall background and process of how we get here. It's not just this magic thing that appears in everybody's lap today, that there's this spreadsheet with all these numbers on it. So I thought a little review might be helpful. The way this happens is several months ago, Finance Committee, ongoing throughout the year, reviews church finances. In the fall of each year, the committee begins to work and plan for the following year's ministry plan, commonly referred to as the budget, and a subcommittee is selected. Planning group leaders submit budget requests for the coming year, and this subcommittee reviews planning group submissions, the past year's finances, expenses, information available to help predict the future, such as trends in giving, trends in utility costs, and things like that, and develops a proposed ministry plan for the coming year. The Finance Committee reviews the proposed plan, and there is lots, and I mean lots, of discussion and rework around those numbers. And then a quote-unquote final version of the plan is presented to Executive Council with even more discussion. Executive Council eventually votes on a version that will then be presented to the congregation for a final vote and approval. The budget itself, as we know it, is not done until it is approved by the congregation. All of this stuff is just background work that is done to present it to all of you. I want to thank for a minute this year's subcommittee of Vaughn, Cheryl, and Nicole, and with support from Pastor Stephen, even though he was on leave for part of this time. This has been and I also want to call out and thank that this is the first time in recent years that all the planning group leaders have submitted written input into the coming ministry budget. So thank you to all of you who were part of that in any way. It's a group effort for sure, and this year it really showed how vested people are in all of this. So thank you to everyone. A little bit more about our background on all of this. Extensive work was done in 2023 to streamline and accurately reflect Olmsted Community Church finances with the goal of being accurate and transparent in all financial matters. This work has resulted in some items or accounts recorded differently than in previous years. For example, the Harding Family Charitable Trust grants were previously recorded and tracked separately from other income, and you'll now see them reflected on the income statements. Previously, the operating budget and monies held in investments were represented separately. It is now recognized and recorded that these monies are part of our overall financial picture. Asset transfers to support operational needs of the church are planned and reflected appropriately as part of the ministry plan. So these are all things that different schools of thought were in place in different years, and there has been a lot of work to align things and have things reflected accurately and transparently, so that as you're reviewing and voting and making decisions about our spending, you have all the information in front of you. So then moving on to our 2024 ministry plan. Let's start at the end. The bottom line of what you have in front of you is that the proposed ministry plan reflects a $29,533 deficit. It's a reality we have to talk about. But what does this mean? First and foremost, we are in total control of our financial future. I know seeing a number like that might seem scary, but the reality is that we are in control. There is a lot of good news in this budget. The good news is that giving is up. If you take a look at the 2022, 2023, and planned 2024 tithes and offerings, you can see a very steady and fairly significant increase. Specifically looking at 2023, we are about $10,000 over what we had budgeted for, and that's really good news. We've been blessed with a living legacy gift of solar panels from Ed Muckley, and because of that, we are already seeing a decrease in our electric bill, approximately 50% than last year. That's awesome. Thank you. Thanks to the generosity of members of the past, we have a mortgage-free building and a permanent fund account that accrues earnings, the purpose of which is to support the ongoing costs of the church. We have applied for and received Harding Family Charitable Trust grants for specific designated projects for several years now. And we continue to be the recipient of significant donations and gifts from members outside of regular tithes and offerings, such as the large donation to support the landscape work that we received. While there is good news, there is room to talk about other parts of this budget, and Katie's going to help present some of that.
So as you'll see from the numbers on the spreadsheet that there is a deficit represented for the proposed 2024 budget, but there's also an opportunity. And the reason why we're seeing some of the numbers that we are, some explanation behind that, is that some expenses have increased faster than our income has increased. So you will see that demonstrated through the trustees line on the budget. And past generosity has provided us with resources used to cover a lot of those unplanned expenses, especially through BMI. But however, those resources have been exhausted. And we do have a planned use of the permanent fund investments in an amount of about 5%. And as our programming has increased and become more robust, the associated costs with that programming has also increased. And so while giving has trended upward, there is work to do and more to give. And your tithes and offerings are how we support not only the mission of the church, but also our operations. And we're really grateful for the work done to maintain the building. And even though insurance costs are more, we are fortunate to still be covered. We have grants from the Harding Trust that we've put to really good use for improvements. And so we've been able to do a lot of work around the church through those grants. And then our investment earnings also help to supplement our overall expenses. So some action items that have been taken or we will be taking in the future. As Mary mentioned, our planning groups this year submitted a budget for each one of their individual committees. So they're really taking a lot of active involvement in what their expenses will be for the year going forward, and also in terms of keeping track of what their spending is and where their money is going that is budgeted for them if approved. And they were invited to a meeting earlier, or late last year rather, to review preliminary budgetary information, fiscal responsibility, and of finances within the groups, and determine where adjustments could be made if possible. And this is a really important step to managing the budget, but it will not lead to a $29,000 difference. And we'll be increasing efforts to talk with members about living legacy and what that means. And all groups are considering where additional volunteer contributions could help reduce costs. So again, if you review the budget items that are listed, you can see where some of our larger expenses go. And one example of that is towards cleaning of the church. So hopefully you're saying to yourself right now, what can I do? I may not be on a planning group, I may not be on the finance committee, but what can I do? And your time, talents, and treasures are an integral part of what we all do, and our future is an us story that depends on your generosity. And this is not something that someone else is going to take the lead on or is responsible for. God calls each and every one of us to be part of that story, and we're all responsible for the financial health of the church. So again, the good news is that we have a lot of potential. Legacy gifts, as part of a will or testament, could sustainably fund an associate pastor. Increased volunteerism, such as preparing communion, cleaning the building, or volunteering in other ways, such as with VBS, could save expenses for the church. And then obviously increased giving. If each giving unit or family is increased by as little as 5%, the deficit would reduce by 50%. So for example, 5% increase for a family donating or giving $100 a month breaks down to $60 a year, or $5 more per month, and that's just with a 5% increase. The Associate Pastor Fund does not receive regular contributions and currently only has enough non-principal funds to cover the initial costs, such as moving expenses for a new pastor or new staff member. And for the past couple of years, we have had paid staff members do VBS, and so this year we will be looking at the potential or the process of having volunteers run the VBS program due to availability. But probably some of our greatest potential lies with our families or our members who are not actively giving. So in this past year, there were 89 family members or families who are members who did not actively financially support Olmsted Community Church. And if each one of those families gave just $100 a year, which equals a little over $8 a month or almost $2 a week, the deficit would reduce by almost $9,000. And if we realize our full potential from givers, from our current givers and our current non-givers, we could increase our income by almost $24,000 and reduce the deficit to only about $5,500.
So I know we kind of went through and pointed out where there's some things that are going well and some areas where we have control and ability to make positive change. As you look at the numbers in front of you, a lot of what we pointed out are those areas to highlight: the change in trustees' expenses, the changes in some of the planning groups, the reduction in some of the other expenses because of utility changes. Are there questions about any of those specific things before we go on? Again, take a look at that and let me know in the week or so ahead if you have questions. Our next steps, our future is strong. Prayerfully review the budget and information that was presented to you today. Come on January 28th prepared to cast your vote towards this ministry plan so that we can continue to do our good work. And reflect now how each of you can be a part of the future story of Olmsted Community Church, so that someday we are the someones being thanked for the foundation others are standing on. Just a couple of other points before we close out today. I want to thank those of you who are attending not only today, but who have attended all these discussions. I think giving each of the points that we've gone over the past few weeks really time and attention to themselves has been really important. Next week will be our annual meeting where we will review briefly and then vote on all 3 items as a consent agenda. There's been information in the bridge about that, about what that means, but basically because we've had discussions each week about each item, there's opportunity to talk about each of those things. We'll be able to just make next week's meeting more efficient and have a single vote for these items. We'll be voting on the statement of fact that Pastor Stephen presented, the 3 new policies that Vaughn presented, and then the ministry plan that you have before you today. The meeting will be streamed, but we will only be able to take votes for those attending in person. So if you are not planning to attend in person but would like to cast your vote, you still have opportunity to do that because all the information has been made available to you. You can do that via U.S. mail or bringing your vote in person to the office no later than 3 o'clock next Friday. If you're voting by email, you can do that up until 10 o'clock next Sunday. If you're not voting in person and you choose to vote one of those other ways, 1 vote per person has to include your name and whether you're voting yay or nay to these 3 items. If you do plan to vote outside of the meeting and you need to see the budget that we passed out now and you're online and you don't have a copy of it in your hand, please contact the church office and they'd be happy to get you a copy so that you can review it and cast your vote on time, along with any of the information that's been presented these past couple of weeks. I want to, again, thank everybody who's been part of this process. This has been a lot of work, many months of dedicated support from people on the Finance Committee, other subgroups that were developed of that, Executive Council, all of it led by Pastor Stephen, and the work, if you recall, a couple of years ago, we started a relationship with Generosity Plus. A lot of this has been guided by our investment of time and getting resources from them. So thank you to everybody. I look forward to meeting next week. And if there's no other questions, I believe we're done. Oh, I see a hand.
People that vote online or vote before, is there something that says what they're actually voting for? Is there a statement that they read and then vote?
I'm going to kind of turn to Stephen to help explain how that will work, because with it being a consent agenda.
You're going to say yes or no, but
It's a yes or no to accept the statement of fact, the ministry plan that's been presented, and the 3 policies that Vaughn presented last week. So it would be to accept those items, right? Am I explaining that correctly? Yeah. Does that answer your question? Okay. Other questions? Okay.
We do just want to point out real quick, sorry. On the back of the budget or ministry plan, you'll notice that there's definitions listed to kind of describe or explain what each one of the items is. So just in case you need help with the explanation, we thought that might be helpful to include.
We needed help with the explanation, yeah, which is why those are on there.
Yeah.
Other questions? Sure. Yes, we can make some more copies today. Also, I apologize if I meant to say it out loud. I apologize if I didn't. If you don't have a copy and you want one, contact the office, especially for those of you online who aren't here to have the opportunity to grab a paper copy, and we can get one to you. But yeah, we can get some more copies for people today who need it. Sure. Look how fast we are.
Just one per household, please.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.